Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hello? Okay. Uh, that, that was supposed to be much more funny than it worked out. Imagine I haven't spoken a word of English. That was all gibberish. Um, Look, all right, can I get a break every now and then with the intros? My name's Connor. Hey, let's go.
Many nations have different interpretations of shared historical moments. Many nations have different interpretations of shared historical moments. This discrepancy in how history is viewed by two opposing sides is pretty clear with respect to the 1688 Glorious Revolution.
Did Churchill really think that of Napoleon? 1688 Glorious Revolution. After Cromwell, I'm getting better with English history. Go.
In Britain, it is mostly seen as British noblemen overthrowing a tyrannical king and replacing him with a constitutional monarch. Whereas in the Netherlands, it's seen as that time we conquered Britain and Ireland. So who is correct? Was it a case of the British Isles being brought to heel by the Dutch, or the English inviting a foreigner to bring an end to its own disorder? Before getting into too much detail, here's a brief overview of events. In the year 1660, England, Scotland and Ireland had restored its monarchy after a period of republicanism under Oliver Cromwell. The returned King Charles II had his own problems during his reign, but the worst thing he did was in 1685, when he died. Charles had converted to Catholicism on his deathbed and had no children. Thus, the throne would pass to his brother James, who was already a Catholic, not something Protestant England was very keen on. James, upon becoming king, promised to respect the religious institutions of England, but fun fact, no. The English nobility, whilst unhappy with James, weren't too concerned because he was getting on a bit and also had no heirs. Until 1688, when he did.
Guys, somebody told me that the reason, so he was 58, life expectancy was so low back in those days is because of the effect that the child mortality rate had on the analytics, on the statistics. So really, like, so if you made it past like 10, what was your life expectancy then? Like, would you still be expected to live until like 70 to 80 if you make it past 10, or was the life expectancy still, even disregarding horrible child mortality, still pretty low? Like, when were you considered like a senior citizen?
Onto the scene comes William of Orange, the Protestant stadtholder of the Dutch Republic, and not to be confused with his great-grandfather William the Silent, also known as William of Orange. William was also concerned about having yet another opponent in Europe. Plus, since he was married to James's daughter, Mary, he did have a claim to the English throne. William was willing to act, but wanted to be sure that he would get some support from the nobles. To his rescue came a group of leading noblemen who promised their support. And with that he came on over, bringing with him 15,000 troops and a fleet larger than the Spanish Armada. When he got there, support for James basically evaporated instantly, and having lost his army to desertion, he opted to run away to France. After this, it was argued that running away was tantamount to abdicating, and so William and Mary were made joint monarchs of England, Scotland and Ireland in 1689. The condition was that William accept that he ruled as a constitutional monarch and that his power
I find it as a trend, not so much Ireland, but Scotland and France for sure. It seems like these are so often throughout English history, I'm learning, the places of refuge that you go if you're a king under trouble or something. It's like, okay, I'm in trouble, I got to go to France or Normandy, or I got to go to Scotland.
1689.
Which makes sense because they'd be the two kind of people who don't like England.
And so William and Mary were made joint monarchs of England, Scotland and Ireland in 1689. The condition was that William accept that he ruled as a constitutional monarch and that his power had its limits. Britain's modern form of monarchy was born. So the interpretations of the Glorious Revolution are of course very different. The English version of events is that since William refused to come over without the support of some noble lords, that this wasn't an invasion but instead a Dutch-backed English coup. This position is supported by the fact that William, despite his leading of the troops, wasn't made king in his own right but was given equal authority with Mary. Also, William had to agree to the 1689 Bill of Rights, which limited his powers.
By royal proclamation, I, King William III, Mary is also here, I guess, do promise not to be a tyrant or a Catholic because both of those things would be bad. Parliament will sit often. I won't raise taxes without it. I will try to speak less Dutch at dinner parties, and I will make sure my kingdoms will stay Protestant. If that doesn't work immediately, then we'll fight a war with France in Ireland in the meantime. It totally was a conquest, by the way.
King, which is not exactly something a conqueror would accept. As such, since the Dutch were limited his power as king, which is not exactly something a conqueror would accept. As such, since the Dutch were also Protestants, it's argued that it was a mutually beneficial deal that strengthened the Protestant world. As for the Dutch interpretation, it's mostly seen as a conquest, or at the very least a coup that would have failed without them. The evidence they used to support this claim is the fact that William didn't land to a grand welcome by the Lords, but landed with an army of 15,000 Dutchmen and was backed by an armada. The Dutch position is seen through the lens of William being an intelligent strategist. He saw the turmoil in England, Scotland and Ireland as an opportunity. The Netherlands was surrounded by foreign enemies who saw its existence as a threat. One argument is that it was the Dutch, not the English, who directed events.
Did they really see it? So the Dutch, the Netherlands was controlled by Spain at one point, right? This is late 1600s. Great Northern War hasn't... Oh, you got the Spanish succession crisis coming up, right? Why exactly do they all hate Netherlands?
Threatened by foreign invasion, William needed to strengthen his hand and so appealed to disaffected lords in Britain to rebel. Turmoil in the British Isles offered a rich opportunity for William, since Englishmen and English money would strengthen the Dutch position. It's argued that whilst William did want support from the nobility, this was largely a formality, and that his position meant that invading was a risk he'd have taken anyway, since the pros outweighed the cons. It wasn't a crown he necessarily needed, it was the combined wealth of the Dutch Republic and the Kingdom of England, Scotland and Ireland to fight the coming wars with his Catholic rivals. William got what he wanted, but also so did the Protestant majority in England, which is what makes this debate so interesting. Did the Dutch conquer England? Well, they turned up with an army but faced little resistance, and many in England were content to allow William and Mary to rule. In the end, little force was used to gain England, but a great deal was needed to subdue Scotland and Ireland, which is why for many the Glorious Revolution is both a conquest and a coup.
Great. So sitting on a fence here. I guess the biggest point I would say it wasn't an invasion or a conquest is that they had to accept some terms from the Dutch did from England, right? Like it said earlier. And if you're a conqueror, why would you need to accept terms at all if you conquered the place? Anyways.
An island, which is why for many the Glorious Revolution is both to my patrons that you see on screen now, and a special
awesome video. Great job as always. Love History Matters. All right. See you guys next time.